What's going on, everyone? Today's video, we got this GMC 3500. A customer says it runs okay when you first start it, but after a little bit it starts running really bad. So let's see what we got here. Well, there's our first problem. Okay, so we got that clutch problem taken care of. Let's start this baby up and see what it says. Does seem like it's missing. Well, maybe not. He did say that the muffler blew out. I guess it backfired, kind of the way he described it. It backfired and blew the sides out of the muffler. But from what he said, it runs okay when you first start it, when it's cold, but after it runs for a minute, it will just kind of take off missing and not running well at all. So we'll get it in the shop here and see what we can figure out. So yeah, you can definitely smell raw gas out here with it idling. So it's definitely missing on at least one cylinder. I mean, it looks like it's idling fairly smooth as far as it's not kind of rocking around. But yeah, like I said, I can plainly smell raw gas, like it's running really rich. We'll hurry up, get it in the shop here before it dies and see what we can figure out with it. All right, so we're back on the old Chevy again. Definitely running really rich. It almost smokes black at idle, but you can definitely smell raw fuel coming out of the exhaust pipe. Hooked up the scan tool to it. No code stored. What I think's going on, well, what I know is going on is it's running way too rich. We can see down here in the short-term fuel trims that it is taking fuel away from both banks. Our startup coolant temp was good, 68 degrees. It's what it is in the shop. Sometimes you can get a coolant temp sensor that's bad and it will show, or a wire unhooked and it will show like negative 40 degrees. So the ECM will think it's super cold outside. It will add a bunch of fuel to try and keep it running at negative 40 degrees, and that will lead to a really rich idle condition. We don't have that particular problem going on. What we have, I believe, is a fuel regulator that could have went bad. That would allow fuel pressure to go right into the vacuum hose on the fuel pressure regulator, get sucked into the engine. Would get burnt on both banks, and that would give you a whole lot of extra fuel that the computer's not trying to put in there. Another thing we got going on, I checked the fuel pressure as well. Fuel pressure while it's running is good, but if I can get you propped up here, I'm going to go in and shut the truck off. And I think you'll see that as soon as I shut the engine off, fuel pressure begins dropping really quick, which is a sign of a leak in the system. So you can see there how fast the fuel pressure drops. That tells you that it's leaking off somewhere in the system. So we know that this rough idle and fuel smell coming out the exhaust is because we're getting way too much fuel in the engine. With the pressure drop in the shown by the fuel pressure gauge when we shut the pump off, that tells me that fuel pressure obviously is leaking off. Really the only three places it can leak off is an external leak after the fuel pump. So say you had a leak at the fuel filter or a pinhole in a line, something like that, that fuel pressure would leak off as soon as you turn the key off, as soon as you turn the pump off, because the system isn't sealed tight anymore. It can also leak off through a fuel injector, If the fuel injector itself is mechanically bad inside, the injector isn't sealing like it should, then that fuel pressure can leak through that injector and into whatever cylinder that injector's on. Right now you can see bank 2 is kind of worse than bank 1 is. It seemed like a little while ago, the first time we had it started, it was bank 1 was maybe slightly higher, or they were a lot closer to each other. Either way, that's what I think's going on this particular engine. You have to take the upper intake manifold off to get to the fuel injectors and the fuel pressure regulator. That's a little bit involved, so I'm going to call the customer and kind of explain what's going on and see if he wants to dive farther into it. Talked to the customer yesterday. They said go ahead and do what we need to do, tear it apart, figure out what's going on, and fix it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to pull this upper intake off today, take a look at the fuel pressure regulator, kind of see what's going on underneath there. If it is bad, it should be fairly obvious. We can turn the key on to make the fuel pump run while we're looking at the regulator, see if fuel's squirting out of it, and that should give us a pretty good idea what's going on. I've already got the regulator and the plenum gasket, so if we do find out that it's the regulator, we've already got the parts here. If not, we can send it back, obviously, and we will need the plenum gasket either way. So we'll get this thing taken off and go from there. All right, so we're back on the 97 GMC 454, was running rough. This is several days later than the first part of the video, but running rough, running extremely rich. My initial thought was the fuel pressure regulator, which is located way back here, kind of under the distributor, and you kind of see the round part of it there. My idea was that the fuel pressure regulator, there's a vacuum hose that goes on the bottom of it, on the nipple sticking out there, and there's a rubber diaphragm inside that fuel pressure regulator. And my initial thought was that the rubber diaphragm was broken and the fuel pressure was just going straight through that nipple vacuum into the intake manifold. What I found out was, and luckily you can see, so the fuel injectors, so like there's a fuel injector, it sprays, if I can get the light where you guys can see, the fuel injector sprays directly into this port and then down onto the intake valve. So I'm gonna go inside, turn the key on, and we'll come back out here and see what happens. In theory, you can turn the key on without the engine running, and you should have no fuel coming out any of these. It shouldn't spray any fuel out of the injectors until you're actually cranking the engine. So we're gonna go in here, just turn the key on where the fuel pump comes on. And if you remember earlier in the video, we had fuel pressure bleeding off after we'd shut the key off. And if you look down in this, so that injector is constantly spraying. The injector is mechanically bad inside of it. The spring and pintle valve that's supposed to close that off, either the spring's broke or it has dirt in it or something like that. But that right there is our problem. Got her all put back together with the new injector on the number 6 cylinder. It's already idling a whole lot better than what it was before. Still sounds a little crazy because of the muffler being blown out. I don't know if I said anything about that in the earlier parts of the video, but you can see it here. So that'll give you a little bit of a weird uneven kind of a sound when it's idling. So I'm gonna take it for a ride, get all the gas and stuff that's inside the engine or inside the intake puddled up, get all that out of there, clean the plug up a little bit. But like I said, I can already tell it's running 10 times smoother than it was already. All right, so we're done with the 97 GMC. Don't know what happened to the last part of the video. Right now I'm filming this probably 2 weeks after we got done with the job. I sat down to upload these videos to create the video that you're watching, edit it, and noticed that the closing part of the video is missing somehow. So here it is. Truck ran good, took it for a test drive, ran great. The fuel trims were back where they were supposed to be, no issues. So customer's gonna get the muffler fixed and kind of see where we go from there. But I'm pretty confident that the problem he was having is fixed. So Appreciate you watching. Leave comments, like and subscribe, please. It'll help my channel and help the other videos get seen. The more people that like and comment on videos, the more YouTube shows them as recommended videos to everybody else. So if you would do that, I'd appreciate it. Keep an eye out for more content. I'm pumping it out as quick as I can. Thanks and have a great day.